it is, guys? It's your boy BlastphamousHD, aka Tyrone Couple, aka Young Child Support on the weekends. And today we're here to check out some embarrassingly stupid ways to die. If you guys want to watch the original video, it is by Wow Amazing. Let's do this.
Number 10. Jet-assisted takeoff. Arizona Highway Patrol stumbled upon a totally bizarre scene. A smoldering pile of metallic wreckage embedded into the rocky face of a cliff along a winding mountain road.
Really?
At first glance, it looked like the aftermath of a tragic airplane crash. But upon closer inspection, they realized it was the vaporized remains of a car. The vehicle was so mangled and melted, they couldn't even tell what make or model it was. The lab geeks eventually cracked the case and pieced together exactly what happened to cause this puzzling disaster. It turns out, a former Air Force sergeant got his hands on a JATO unit. For those not in the know, JATO stands for Jet Assisted Takeoff. These are essentially solid fuel rockets used to give huge military transport planes an extra boost when taking off from short runways. Well, our sergeant took the JATO unit out to the wide open Arizona desert, home to many world land speed record attempts. He found a long, straight stretch of road, strapped the JATO to his car, and the rest is history. Using the evidence, experts concluded that he was driving a 1967 Chevy
Homie Fast and Furious himself thought he was Dom Toretto.
Impala and sparked the JATO unit about 3.9 miles away from where the wreckage was found. How do they know this? There was a prominently scorched and melted section of pavement exactly 3.9 miles back, where he first hit the gas. The car instantly shot up to around 250 to 300 miles per hour and maintained that breakneck speed for 15 to 20 seconds, while the driver experienced G-forces like he was at the controls of an F-14 Tomcat.
Oh, goodness.
Staying straight as an arrow along the open highway, the Chevy covered about 2.6 miles before the driver slammed on the brakes, which immediately melted away and blew the tires. But the crazed Impala just kept on soaring through the air for over a mile more before smacking into the canyon wall, 125 feet up, and leaving a blackened, 3-foot deep crater in the rocks. There wasn't much left of the driver, just tiny bone fragments and teeth shards extracted from the crater. But the kicker. Amongst the debris, they found a mostly intact bumper sticker that ironically read, "How do you like my driving? Dial 1-800-EAT-SHIT. Just goes to show, sometimes adding rocket power to your old Chevy has disastrous consequences when unrestrained gearhead enthusiasm gets the best of you. Number 9. Death by water bottle waterfall. Let me set the scene for you. An Italian supermarket, shelves overflowing with bottled water, dead of night. Our protagonist is a 46-year-old man, known for mischief in the small city of Cattolica. On Easter Monday, when the market was closed, he decided to sneak in the back door and help himself to their wares. Little did he know, this break-in would be his last. After slinking inside, the man paused to quench his thirst by swiping a bottle from a towering, precarious display of water bottles. And that's when disaster struck. The entire towering stack collapsed on him. Just picture a huge waterfall of water bottles cascading down. When employees returned the next morning, they were met with a huge mess of jumbled crates and bottles all over the floor. A few hours into cleaning up, they lifted the first crate only to discover a human arm poking out. Luckily, security footage from the CCTV cameras allowed investigators to piece together the man's last moments. As he greedily tugged that bottle free, the weight of the piled up crates came crashing down upon him. Folks felt bad he had died, but then again it was his own fault twice over. Breaking into the clothes shop, then foolishly tempting gravity's wrath. Number 8. Red Evolution. This one is about a Russian welder who had a fatal encounter with an artillery cannon and a fire extinguisher. We'll call him by his pseudonym, Vargas. Vargas worked for a highway construction company in Celino. One day, he realized how perfectly a fire extinguisher fit down the barrel of an old decommissioned howitzer cannon. Inspiration struck. Despite welders not normally being known as daredevils, Vargas was determined to prove the old saying true. There are old welders and bold welders, but there are no old, bold welders. He decided to load the cannon with a volatile combination of calcium carbide and water, which produces acetylene gas when mixed.
That don't even sound good.
Vargas placed the fire extinguisher inside the barrel as his makeshift cannonball. When he fired the cannon, the abused fire extinguisher exploded out the end as shrapnel. Tragically, Vargas's head was directly in the path of the flying metal shards. In a fight between an empty skull and sharp shrapnel, the shrapnel won. This Darwin Award fatality was so foolish, it was written up as a warning on a Russian occupational safety website. I'd refer you there for more details, but internet translations from Russian to English leave much to be desired. Number 7. Master meets bait end. Our next Darwin Award winner is about Clifford Ray Jones, a 58-year-old Michigan man who tragically demonstrated why distracted driving can have deadly consequences. It was a cold Sunday morning on January 22, 2016, when Clifford chose some questionable in-car entertainment. He was cruising down the freeway while pantsless, seatbeltless, and fully immersed in an adult film playing on his phone.
What?
To make matters worse, his Toyota had a wide-open sunroof on this freezing winter day. Clifford really should have kept both hands on the wheel instead of himself. In the early hours at 3:40 a.m., his lack of attention caused his car to swerve out of control on the I-75 on-ramp. The Toyota rolled and crashed, violently ejecting Clifford through the open sunroof in a graphic finale, and so marked the untimely end of Clifford and his beloved best friend. Number 6.
I used to love that show when I was a kid.
John Allen
Best big
Chow
red
was a
dog ever.
self-proclaimed world explorer inspired by Livingstone and Jesus. This zealous missionary met a tragic end when he was killed by the very tribe he hoped to save on a remote Indian Ocean island. According to reports from the British Broadcasting Corporation in Delhi, Chow bribed local fishermen to smuggle him to the forbidden North Sentinel Island. His goal was to offer the isolated Sentinelese tribe gifts like scissors, a soccer ball, and the gospel. In a letter to his family, this adventurous Vancouver native said he wanted to make contact with the 60,000-year-old tribe to ensure their eternal life. Upon arriving by kayak,
He was my brave wilderness, the Jehovah's Witness. Oh boy, let's see how well pamphlet pushing in the streets of the wilderness did for him.
Chow was immediately met with a volley of arrows, but he continued walking ashore, much to the tribe's violent dismay. The fisherman witnessed the Sentinelese tie a rope around Chow's neck and drag his lifeless body along the beach, clearly rejecting his gifts and intentions. Understandably, the most isolated tribe on Earth has taken a strict no-visitors policy since British occupation nearly wiped them out in the 1800s. So, it's no surprise Chow's remains are still unrecovered on the remote island. Was he a martyr, as friends proclaim? A devoted missionary, as his parents believe? A selfish Instagram user seeking thrills? Or even a genocidal maniac exposing the tribe to deadly disease, as his ominous biblical quote suggests? We may never know Chow's true motivations since the Sentinelese aren't exactly active social media users. But one thing is clear, this isolated tribe has zero tolerance for outside contact, even from a well-meaning missionary. Number 5,
Even I
the
couldn't
enema
make friends
within.
with him.
Our next winner hails from Texas, a man named Michael, a severe alcoholic. However, Michael wasn't your typical drinker consuming beer and liquor by mouth. Far from it. Michael had an unusual addiction to enemas and frequently used alcohol as his chosen liquid. This might sound unusual, so let me provide some context. Michael owned a machine shop. Due to a painful throat condition, he couldn't consume alcohol in the traditional manner. Instead, he devised an alternative method, administering it directly into his rectum. On one fateful night, Michael decided to indulge in a particularly potent enema session, involving 1.5 liters of sherry wine. That's over 100 fluid ounces. It's an excessive amount of sherry by any standards, especially to be introduced rectally. Most people, when they've had too much to drink, will either stop or pass out. But when Michael reached his limit and lost consciousness, his body continued to absorb the sherry. The results were fatal. By the next morning, Michael had passed away. The medical examiner revealed that Michael's blood alcohol concentration was 0.47%. At 58 years old, he effectively embalmed himself from within. To be awarded the Darwin Award, one's actions must showcase a remarkable misjudgment that eventually leads to them being removed from the gene pool. With 3 liters of sherry administered in such an unconventional manner,
Never drink things with your cheeks, men. Might have to edit that one out.
Michael certainly met that criteria. Upon hearing about the incident, Michael's neighbors expressed their shock. They were unaware of his peculiar habit of using sherry in enemas. Yet, in the age of the internet, several people have shared their own tales of rectal alcohol consumption.
What?
It's surprising to learn that this is a practice others have engaged in. Number 4, Case of the Charred Crook. Introducing Boyan Basic, a small-time criminal whose criminal history spans as long as a Tolstoy novel. This relentless petty thief spent the better part of his 25 years oscillating between freedom and incarceration. For instance, Bojan recently secured himself an 8-month sentence in a Pula prison for sending disturbing death threat letters to his ex-girlfriend. This adds to the cumulative 5 years he already accumulated, painting a picture of a true career criminal, wouldn't you agree? During his most recent stint behind bars, Boyan's behavior was so erratic that guards felt compelled to place him in solitary confinement inside a padded cell. Unbeknownst to them, this cunning inmate had managed to smuggle in a lighter. Impressively, even with his hands bound, Boyan was able to retrieve the lighter and ignite a flame. Security cameras captured the moment around 3:35 p.m. when, with apparent glee, he set a fire by the door. As the rubber walls of his confinement caught fire, he seemed to revel in the growing blaze. However, his elation quickly turned to panic as he realized the danger of his escalating situation. The guards, taken aback by the sight of the cell engulfed in flames, reached Bojan too late. His fiery end became the first instance of an inmate dying in this manner in the country's entire prison history. While Bojan may not have been a mastermind in crime, his dramatic exit certainly showcased an unparalleled flair. Number 3, forklift around and find out. An employee at Tanaramono Logistics was dead set on taking logistics into his own hands. When a light bulb burnt out 10 meters overhead, he was resolute in his decision to replace it himself. However, there was a challenge. The forklift at his disposal could only elevate him to a height of 2.5 meters, which was far short of the 10-meter requirement. Let's consider this as a mathematical conundrum. If a person can reach a height of 2 meters standing, but the bulb is situated 10 meters above, how many 15-centimeter wood pallets would he need to stack on the 2.5-meter forklift to bridge the gap? The solution? A staggering 37 pallets.
Oh, no.
Undeterred, our enterprising worker began the process of stacking the pallets, constructing a precarious 37-piece tower. After assembling his makeshift platform, he enlisted the help of a co-worker to operate the forklift. With the pallet tower in place, he clambered to the summit, ready to ascend towards the elusive bulb. However, as anyone acquainted with the instability of haphazardly stacked pallets might predict, disaster was imminent. The wobbly structure gave way, resulting in a tragic fall that culminated in the worker's untimely demise amidst the debris. Though his original intent was merely to see the light, fate had different plans, and he ended up reaching an entirely different plane of existence. Number 2, pretty fly for a dead guy. Introducing 23-year-old Solomon, an aviation enthusiast training at a local airport. After completing a solo flight in a Cessna 172, Solomon was filled with so much excitement that he impulsively purchased a different aircraft, a Piper PA-28-140. The catch? He had absolutely no training or experience with this particular model. Eager to showcase his new acquisition, Solomon presented the Piper to his flight instructor. The instructor, recognizing the potential dangers, sternly warned him, "Do not fly this plane until you've received proper training." However, such cautionary advice failed to deter our audacious aviator. On a chilly winter evening, Solomon, throwing all caution to the wind, decided to take the Piper for a spin. Merely minutes after embarking on the perilous 7:30 p.m. flight, the aircraft vanished.
Throw caution to the wind. You and a friend can jump into a plane, and if you live, do it again. Ah, Eminem.
Into the night's obscurity. Due to an inactive transponder, air traffic controllers remained oblivious to the missing Piper. It wasn't until the following day that alarm bells rang when a concerned friend inquired about Solomon's whereabouts. The somber conclusion came when crash investigators located the Piper's wreckage in a heavily forested area, revealing 2 tragic casualties. Solomon posthumously receives a Darwin Award for his series of grave flight transgressions. The passenger, who tragically joined him on this ill-fated journey, gets an honourable mention for the decision to partake in such a risky endeavour. Number 1. Santa Ignorancia. Our final tale brings us to a Catholic priest's tragic fate in an unusual helium balloon accident. On April 20th, 2008, above the vast Atlantic Ocean, this priest attempted to ascend to the skies using approximately 45 weather balloons. You might be imagining a scene straight from the animated movie Up. However, this priest drew inspiration from a real-life 1982 event involving lawn chair Larry. Larry daringly took to the skies above Los Angeles, cutting his lawn chair's tether, which was lifted by dozens of weather balloons. Astonishingly, Larry survived, later inspiring the plot of Up. Father Adelia Antonio, at 51 years old, sought to emulate Larry's eccentric venture. Aiming for a new world record in clustered balloon flight altitude, his intentions were nobler than mere thrill-seeking. This audacious stunt aimed to garner attention for his initiative to establish rest stops for truck drivers on isolated highways. Undeniably, being suspended in a chair for 19 hours, even one buoyed by helium balloons, is a formidable challenge. Despite this, Father Antonio equipped himself diligently, wearing an official survival suite, and carrying a satellite phone and GPS locator. Regrettably, this preparation was his tragic undoing. Father Antonio lacked expertise with the GPS device, and as his balloons veered off course, he was cast adrift over the vast ocean. A timely parachute descent could have saved him, yet he refrained from popping the balloons for an emergency landing. As desperation grew and he found himself lost, the priest attempted to phone for assistance. Hindered by his unfamiliarity with the GPS, rescuers couldn't ascertain his precise location. As his cell phone's battery dwindled, so too did his hopes. It seems Father Antonio placed profound trust in divine intervention. In subsequent days, fragments of ruptured weather balloons began appearing on distant beaches and mountainsides. These relics indicated that his heavenly journey had tragically concluded. Eventually, his lifeless body was discovered in the sea, suggesting that in his unique way, he had indeed met the Holy Father. Here's a twist to this incredible story. Father Adelia Antonio's ill-fated flight qualifies for a double Darwin Award. Catholic priests, due to their lifelong vows of celibacy, have voluntarily withdrawn from the gene pool, thus securing a collective Darwin Award. Hence, between his balloon misadventure and his celibate commitment, Father Antonio receives not 1 but 2 Darwin Awards. Number 10. Dead on Valentine's Day. This first story is an ironic tragedy about a jerk who tried using Valentine's Day for vengeance instead of love. The tale starts last December in Germany, where a hot-headed 19-year-old lad was strolling with his girlfriend along the chilly Havel River. Well, the two started quarrelling over something stupid, as couples do. But instead of talking it out sensibly, Mr. Macho Moron let his temper rocket out of control. He suddenly shoved his screaming and flailing gal straight into the icy Sudigsee River. Then he jumped in to hold her under, likely wanting to teach her a warped lesson.
Oh, no!
Thank God his date could swim though and got away to shore with hypothermia. As for her boneheaded boyfriend, he sank like a stone since he never learned swimming. Emergency crews whisked the half-drowned dunce to the hospital, where he fell into a coma from irreversible brain damage. Doctors issued a criminal warrant for attempted murder too. But karma issued her own wicked punishment. Our soaking wet scoundrel clung to life for 2 long months before finally dying alone on February 14th, Valentine's Day. Talk about irony. Let this be a lesson to all hotheads. Attacking your lover will sink your relationship.
Yeah, that's
Number
how they
9.
got Diddy.
Race to the death.
That's how they got Diddy.
Now on to an equally bull-headed fella in number 9, whose need for speed got the best of him. Put even an ounce of common sense in this dude's brain, and he'd likely still be alive today. Our asphalt daredevil is none other than young Mr. Kevin Ward, an amateur sprint car racer from New York. Now I gotta explain sprint cars for you non-gearheads. They're lightweight speed cars made for dirt oval tracks and can hit 140 plus miles per hour. They drift around corners using super slick tyres, and drivers wear fire suits, helmets and safety harnesses while caged inside. Now Mr. Ward knew the rules after years behind the wheel. Stay strapped inside no matter what until crews arrive, because these babies zip around fast as all get out. But I guess young Kevin skipped school on Common Sense Day. During one nighttime race, he spun out after another vehicle bumped his backwater. Kevin's ride slammed the wall hard, ending his hopes at victory lane. Most racers would calmly wait for tow trucks before discussing the collision with the other driver afterwards. But oh no, not our boy Kevin. He was seeing red and threw caution to the wind, literally. The bonehead bailed out of his crashed bucket onto the active dirt racetrack to give the guy who hit him a piece of his mind. Can you believe it? Kevin ignored all logic and marched right into harm's way, wearing a dark fire suit nearly invisible on a dim track. He died when the driver who bumped him earlier came whipping round a turn and tried swerving at the last second. Kevin took the full brunt of a sliding sprint car to the ribs at high speed. All because hothead Kevin wanted revenge right then, unable to control his temper over a simple racing dust-up. The driver never saw Kevin standing there until impact and had zero time to react. What a reckless waste of a promising young talent. Number 8. Out of their minds. Number 8 is yet another head-scratcher. How many times must people hear, "Keep your head inside vehicles," before it sinks in? I'll spell it out real simple. Inside good, outside bad. But a group of party-loving corporate tour bus riders decided to tempt fate and find out the hard way. During a Dutch company trip on a sunny summer day, some wildcard employees started sticking their heads out the bus's open roof windows as their driver motored down the highway. They relished the breeze as grinning dopily, not unlike dogs on a joyride. Well, their buzzkill bus driver shrieked over the PA for everyone to cut out the nonsense and stay seated safely inside about, half a dozen freaking times. But did the corporate rebels listen? Nope. 2 extra stupid blokes kept belting out tunes with heads out the windows without a care in the world. They howled laughs over the wind noise right up until the bus entered a tunnel and, crack, their skulls met concrete at 65 miles per hour. Their heads damn near popped off as bodies ragdolled down the aisle. Big yikes. When authorities interviewed the stressed out driver, he threw up his hands and goes, "I always lock the damn thing when kids are in the bus, because kids just don't listen. But for God's sake, these were adults." As they say, age doesn't always equate wisdom. Number 7, long lonesome train. Moving right along to number 7, this one really gets my goat. How many times do people need to hear that trains always win before it sinks in? Let me repeat it, folks. Trains cannot stop quickly and they cannot swerve. So do not play on train tracks. Seems simple enough, but I guess it wasn't for the guy in Kansas who got bored waiting for help next to the tracks after his jalopy broke down. This genius decided to stand right on the train tracks themselves to call for assistance. I wonder if he bothered to look both ways first. Doubt it. And before he could finish dialing, an oncoming train ploughed him down. Seriously, dude. Number 6, Red Evolution. Now I gotta warn you, number 6 is a doozy involving explosions and decapitations.
Word?
Our man of the hour is a Russian welder named Vargas, who worked highway construction. Well, Vargas noticed an empty artillery cannon at his work site one day. Then he spotted a fire extinguisher and boom, a light bulb went off. Vargas got the bright idea to stuff said fire extinguisher down the barrel of the cannon. Why? Maybe he was going for distance when testing his fire suppression skills? Either way, Vargas wasn't satisfied with just any cannon ammo. Oh no, he wanted some explosive oomph, so he added calcium carbide and water, makes acetylene gas, before plugging up the cannon hole with the poor fire extinguisher. Can you see where this is going? That's right. Vargas himself aimed the weapon right at his melon head. Needless to say, when his DIY cannon fired, both the fire extinguisher and Vargas's skull exploded into itty-bitty pieces. Guess you could call it a draw between Vargas's empty head and the shrapnel. Number 5, amphetamines and aerobatics. Alright, Number 5 is about a Major League Baseball legend who people said was on the higher plane of elite athletes. But Roy Halladay took that compliment a bit too far. After retirement, the Hall of Famer purchased himself a sporty amphibious plane called an Icon A5. A nice little toy, but Roy made a big mistake on its maiden flight. He got high as a kite. See, his pre-flight checklist involved drinking booze with a cocktail of morphine, amphetamines, and sleeping pills. Apparently his sore baseball injuries required pain meds, but I'm not sure why the other stuff got thrown into the mix. So old Roy climbed into his slick plane while doped up to the gills. Then he started pulling crazy stunts over the Gulf of Mexico, like diving 5 feet over the water at top speed. Witnesses thought he'd kill himself and busted out their phones to record it. Maybe 15 minutes after takeoff is when things went south. Roy stalled out the plane during a turning climb maneuver. It inverted, the wings detached, and Roy ploughed directly into the water upside down. The danged fool drowned because he was feeling no pain from all that junk in his system, and unfortunately, all his fans felt the pain of his loss instead. Number 4. Bagatelle. Buckle up, we've got some wild ones coming up next, starting with number 4. Man. This one goes to show that even a teensy mistake can turn tragic fast. A 58-year-old woman in New South Wales, Australia, pulled her Mazda SUV over to double check if her groceries made it into the trunk all right. Isn't that something we've all done at some point? But here's where things took a nasty turn. Turns out she didn't put the parking brake on properly. So while she's back there rifling through bags in the hatch, the SUV starts slowly rolling backwards down the street. And the poor woman didn't even notice until the still open trunk lid knocked her down, then fully rolled over her body before crashing into stuff roadside. Bystanders rushed over, but it was too late. News reports didn't even confirm if her precious grocery bags were in the car or not. But thanks to that tiny oversight with the brake, her bags were the least of her worries. Number 3. Bulletproof. Now number 3 comes all the way from Ghana, and involves a group of guys who firmly believed in witchcraft for invincibility. Like to bullets, 100%. After all, their magic potion salesman promised it would work wonders, and he told the group they simply had to cover themselves in this special lotion for 2 full weeks to activate its shield-like powers.
What?
So a guy named Ali Abiga volunteered to go first when the time came to test it out.
What?
All his buddies aimed guns and fired full-on directly at Ali Abiga, just standing there in a clearing. Afterwards, I bet those pals were sorely disappointed that, surprise, surprise, regular old bullets went right through their liquored-up friend. The scam artist potion seller got beaten for his fake wares. But too bad for Ali Abiga, no refunds in the afterlife over a false advertisement. Number 2. The unkindest cut. Number 2 is a brain kicker involving a high-voltage tangle with pruning shears. It started when a 25-year-old dude lost control of his Toyota truck on a road in Oregon and crashed sideways into a utility pole real hard. This brought down some power lines across his vehicle that began snaking and arcing with electricity. Now common sense says stay inside the truck and wait for utility crews, right? But oh no, our man grabs pruning shears from his truck and hops out beneath the live wire. Can you guess what happened next? He decided to prune the 7,500 volt cable lying over his truck. Eyewitness police think he was trying to cut himself free and escape. But the second those shears made contact, zap. They conducted the electricity directly through his body, stopping his heart instantly. He was a human conduit. Police found his lifeless body face down with the shears still clenched in his hands. His truck passenger somehow survived, but had an outstanding warrant. So he was cuffed and stuffed off to jail instead. But something tells me he learned his lesson about power line safety that day. Number 1. Pistol of Justice. I saved the craziest for last. Number 1 is a disaster involving a firearm mishap of epic proportions. And I gotta warn you right now, this one makes all male listeners cringe. A few years back, a security guard in Argentina had himself a little workplace accident. And by little I mean he shot himself. Right in the family jewels. With his own gun. See, dude was carrying an unregistered .45 caliber pistol in his pants waistband for his job. Maybe not the best idea while walking around, but I digress. One day he loses control of his vehicle and crashes it upside down into the ditch. Our boy climbs out without a scratch and goes to survey the damage. But somehow in all the excitement, he shoots himself straight through the testicles with that poorly holstered gun. Ouch, bro. The pain must have been insane. He did live and eventually recovered. But now he's down a pair of potential future children and lost his job to top it off. Though, when the case finally made it to court, the judge took pity and ruled the man's self-inflicted blast was punishment enough. Can't argue with that. Bonus winner, I can't swim. And finally, for a crazy bonus story, imagine this. A nice summer boat ride turns deadly for one genius captain and dad in Canada who drowned after leaping into a lake without a life jacket. First off, common sense says someone who can't swim should definitely wear a personal flotation device on the water. Our man here not only couldn't swim a lick, but jumped right in without any floaties. Strike one. Then wind and waves immediately started blowing his small boat away, so no one aboard could retrieve him. Strike two. The victim also failed to teach his wife how to pilot the boat. So when he screamed for help, she couldn't steer over, start the motor, nothing. Strike three. And when others waved for aid from shore, the group had no whistle or safety rope to throw the man either, just empty, useless hands. Pretty much 4 strikes for one loser in this ball game of life. While his family mourned, authorities basically shrugged and said they saw this preventable drowning coming a mile away. So thanks to his flurry of float mishaps, this bright bulb fizzed out, no longer passing on his lack of aquatic skills to future offspring. That's it for today's video.
The moral of this video is never try to fist fight a car. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to comment, like, and/or subscribe. It's your boy BlastphamousHD. Twizzles.